Are you hot or cold or?
I wore this,
I think we do one more.
One more?
Yeah.
Just take off here, man.
Mine does.
You want it?
off or?
No,
Just
just
slow.
down,
When they acts up, you do this.
or I get it.
Whoever reaches it first.
Yeah. I don't know if I hit
He's
Kay.
got a gavel, he's got a gavel over there, so.
Yeah, he's got a gavel and she's got a long stick.
Okay, the Young County Commissioners Court will come to order, setting in a call meeting, Monday, March the 15th, 2021, it's 9:32 a.m. This meeting was posted in the manner and for the time required. And so noted, so with the court's approval, we'll forego our usual beginning matters. Might note that we are on live YouTube, that all members of the court are present. And if it's if the court approves, we'll just go right into our public comments and announcements. And, no action items here. Does anyone have any objection to that? Nope.
This is just as good as any.
Okay. I've got noted in here deputation and oath of office for Tina Gillum, County Clerk's newest assistant. I know Tina. Knew her and her husband for quite some time. Didn't realize that, I didn't even know they were back in the county. So, welcome to Tina. Next item I have is Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, Young County, advertising for Young County Ag Day, April 27th, 2021, at 9 o'clock till 2 o'clock, 9 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. There is registration necessary, and I'm sure we'll have some kind of a lunch that will be at probably some kind of a donated kind of cost. It's usually a good event, and there is some continuing education hours for your pesticide applicators, private license, if any of you need any of that. And that'll be held at Young County Arena. As far as I know, our COVID numbers, as far as our active positives, are still down at 9, was the last report that I received. Actually wasn't a report, it was, I believe I read that in the newspaper maybe over the weekend. Is there anything else that needs to be made mention of today? Okay. Item number 4 will be County Clerk's minutes, March the 8th. I'm not sure, did I give those looked at?
Can you just pass it out to everybody?
We won't have those in the packet, I don't guess. We do? Okay. Are there any additions, deletions, or completions that need to be made?
Everybody's good. There's some typos, but that's it. Okay, does not make typos. It's good.
Who second that?
I did.
Motion by Commissioner Wiley, second by Commissioner Pruitt to approve those minutes as presented. All in favor? Carried 5-0. Item number 5 is consider auditor's budget amendments and vouchers payable.
I get to be here myself this morning, and don't get me back, sorry. Total out of all the funds is $80,140.32. And out of the general fund is $55,514.91.
So moved.
Included in that is a preliminary bill on our audit, so far, I think it was one for 18 and one for 5,500. It's about
That's that
20.
Commissioner Pruitt? Was that who that was?
No,
No,
He was
Pruitt
also-
first, I second.
Pruitt,
Yeah.
first.
I second.
Pruitt, Molly?
Big jacket along.
All in favor of approval? Item number 6 is discuss, consider county judges commission association of Texas annual dues at $1,800. I think this went up, about a year or 2 years ago. It's, our customary practice and that's been budgeted for.
So moved.
Second.
Obviously, it has to do with, some of the bills that's being filed down in the legislature, and some of it's been priority that, that could affect our representation and the people that are collecting the information and evaluating the bills that come through there, those that affect us, and those that are good for us, and those that are bad for us. And when I say us, I'm talking about our citizens here in our county as well as the county government itself. So, that's a pretty important issue, is that particular part, however small it is, and it's a small part of our dues that goes toward those kinds of activities. So, who had the motion? Any?
Second.
Pruitt? All in favor of those dues? All in favor? Aye. All? 5-0.
We'll pay on next week's voucher run.
Item number 7 is discuss, consider tax resale deed for the Brandon Field of College and Mott. It's on 3.31 acre parcel. It's right out here south of town. It was, I guess, around the ISD is now in the driver's seat on it, so it would be a resale deed, get that back on.
So moved. They say it's valued at nearly $10,000.
Crystal?
They sold it for $2,500. Dang, I'm always out of there.
3.31 acres.
All in favor?
You too?
They bought it, guys out of Fort Worth bought it. Brian Batchelor and Tim W. Hill.
Who's he gonna put in a Long John Silver?
Item number 8, discuss, consider application permit to install culvert entry in Young County road right of way, ditch line, Favor Road, Stacy Rogers, precinct 3. I guess it's in your packet. What say you?
Got new construction coming through the country. On the dead end lease road, so I'm gonna have to rebuild the road, they application, you can't pull you.
I'll second. The Clintons gonna build their house and move out of town.
Sold his old house to, Chief Police.
Chief of Public.
Not really.
Market about 3 days, I think.
Good deal. So you gonna use flat bottom?
Yeah. Pretty wide ditch. Wide ditch for somewhere. Stay wet too.
They use a lot of flat.
Hey, we got any more information on any more development of that?
No, I let them know that they was gonna have to draw a plat up if they was gonna sell more lots than that. And maybe another residential too,
Here's the thing, is if the family does it, we don't have to have that.
it's not a big family.
Okay.
So if it's split up between the family?
If you got a subdivision that's made up of family or kin, you don't have to have it.
No.
No.
Didn't know.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
did you get that? Did he give you that permit? Was that out there on the Wolf Road?
Yes. I don't need to talk to that fella. I need to talk to him.
You know, it's, I think it's a 6-inch,
Is it?
it's a 6-inch poly, or Schedule 40 PVC. It'll probably work, the ditch is real shallow there, and it's almost on the peak of the rise, not much water will come down it.
Okay.
So, and I pinned one of those permits and the policy, put it in a plastic bag, put it out there right before that big snowstorm hit. And I think got it.
Oh, he did?
He came up here, I don't know, it's been a week ago, or several days ago, early last week.
Okay.
And asked him what the deal was there, and I said, well, it's like a policy, and you're required to give notice and get permit to that culvert. And, then I said, it was me to put that on there. His name's Robert Anderson, I believe, or Andrews Anderson, I think. Well, the corner off there, and that's something else that I'm working on, because I think that the portion of land that came off of was subdivided, it's probably gonna be necessary for them, just like the other one, to, at least file a survey on there and application for no roads or anything like that, because that one section is less than the 10 acres. You know, so, I think there's 2 50-acre blocks, and then this one, so 3 or 4 acre, 5-acre block. Okay.
Does he want us to bury it? Does he want us to bury his pipe, or put it in?
It's already in.
Oh, it's already in.
Yeah, that's why I put that field out there.
Okay. I got you. That didn't even knock him around here.
That's all.
Quick.
That's all they got. I don't know, probably a day or 2 after it put in, I went by there and said, come in here and nobody had anybody permits. So
Okay.
that's when I went
I got you now.
kind
I'll
of
get it.
deal on this.
We'll put it on the next one.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of the color? Okay. Call, item number 9, discuss and consider completing preservation of Commissioners Court minutes. Our county clerk, Ms. Cody Harden. How
Okay,
many
this is
dollars did you say that was?
17, it's still gonna be under the 50,000 even after all of this. I did not make big pay, things, but it's 17,600, and it's for 5 books to finish up the preservation or the restoration of the old county court minutes. And they're just putting in some nice black binders that lock, and they keep everything out until you open them up. So it'll be taken out of my archive account.
That's $36,000 a book.
I know, but there's over 600 pages in each book. When it's less than 6, then they'll take it down. If they see that the pages are not filled, they'll take the cost down. But he just went in there and looked at the book, said 600 pages, I went down there and looked, 600 pages, but if there's nothing written on them, the cost comes down. But it's just easier for them to go in there, get the account of a book, and count it up, and then come down on price as it comes through, because they'll count the pages down there, and then I'll count them when they come through.
How much you get paid, $1?
But these are scanning, they're getting them so that they get all the oil off of them, put them in a plastic, well, it's not really plastic, but it's a page that preserves that page so it will not deteriorate. And it's minutes I have to keep.
Archive fund?
Archive fund,
The only thing you pay it for?
archive fund.
Archive of records?
Huh?
Is the archive of records?
Yes. Anybody can come down there and look at them. I'll go down there with them when they go to make sure, but, yeah. But it just to keep the pages from being destroyed.
You got how much in that account?
196,000.
So moved.
Who's that bid from?
Huh?
Who's the bid from?
Cobalt.
Copal, okay, that's what I thought.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll say.
Rogers. All in favor?
No.
Aye. Okay, item number 10. Discuss, consider requesting sealed bids for, I had Timmy add that double or single course, I'm assuming it's the same course.
Single.
Seal for 5.3 miles in Young County Precinct 2, and or any other
I'm glad
precinct
you
might
did that.
get in on that.
I was talking to Stacy, and I think he wanted 3 or 4 miles, didn't you?
Yeah, 3 miles.
Then-
Double?
Yeah. Yes,
I wanted, I was gonna get both, just a bid on both of them, just to see what
sir.
difference.
Part of mine's gonna be that C-Clip grant.
Yeah, mine too.
We can go ahead and be bid with a little bit of private work too. I think just all one bid.
Yeah.
You know, I guess, I mean, a bid's a bid.
Mine's gonna be Murray Cemetery Road, Prophet Road, and Bullet Road.
And you want double and
Yeah,
single
just give them
bids?
a price on both of them, please.
Okay.
Yeah, the American Trail.
How many miles?
I've got it, the rock for double course on
Yeah,
it.
double it.
Yeah.
How many miles you have?
Oh, about 3.
3? Oh, about 3, what's this old about 3?
Yeah, I did that FDR job on 3, but I ended up, I think, maybe about 3.3 miles.
But they're about 8.6 miles.
Okay, so yours is 5.3, and his is 3.3?
Put about a mile on mine.
And then a mile on his, so
You're
9.6.
killing me.
Do I got a 10? No, I got 10.
3 1/4 on mine.
You know, lengthy roads?
Yeah, but I got 1.7 minus 180 feet, so how much is that?
1.7.
1.7 miles minus 180 feet.
That would be 1.3
And I got
miles.
0.9.
I'm gonna go 3.
And I got 0.9 minus 100 feet. I just got told you this yesterday. Put them down to 3 1/4 miles.
3 1/4?
Yeah, double. 3 1/4.
You got that down, Sharon?
So you don't want single course bid on yours, just double? Okay.
The Murray Cemetery will be double.
Jimmy, what are you
How many
wanting?
miles?
3 1/4.
It'd be up for 3.25,
How much?
1 mile.
There you go, okay, 5.3, precinct 2,
Double.
that gonna be 3.25. Precinct 3. Anybody else want in on that business?
I got that.
1 mile of mine.
They still got no money?
John gave me this while ago.
Okay.
Hardship still take.
Okay, we want the bids.
That was what we're
Open the bids.
Well, the soonest, we can be the first meeting in April, which is April 12th, I believe.
Hey,
Okay, now April 12th,
I didn't change
April
this.
26th.
You're like, I don't know, that'll be all right.
Let me go look at that calendar.
Okay. What do you say about April 12th next month?
I mean, April 12th is fine, I just look at the time.
Are we getting over there?
With me and Cheryl.
I know between two, we need crutches.
Remember I talked to you, how much seat that month?
So that, right there is what you're saying, Cheryl? Here,
Yes.
get them in them here.
End on Friday at 4.
April Fool's Day.
Closed on, oh, you're
Yeah.
taking the ninth?
Well, I mean, the only day we can do it is on Thursday,
Oh,
for Fool's Day, because Friday we're closed, it's Good Friday.
good.
So you're gonna close the business on?
Oh, wait, why am I doing that?
I don't know.
Why am I doing that? Hello, stupid, you say Matt.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, there we go, the 9.
Okay, so accept them on the 9th until 4 p.m. and open it, is it all right to open at 10 a.m. on Monday the 12th?
Yeah, probably all right. We had, we're gonna have these, we're gonna have the wind farm thing on that and subdivision, but our notice, we couldn't get the notices in time,
Oh,
so we have to delay that until the 26th.
okay, so we're good for 10 a.m.
so close on the ninth, you're open on the 12th.
Bids, April 9, 4 p.m.
That's fine, that's fine.
So we can get them, come down in May and get it over with. Thanks,
We,
Open on 12.
you doing it, we furnish the rock or they furnish? either
Yeah,
way?
what are you doing then? Who's
I'm gonna furnish the rock.
everybody gonna furnish rock?
They got that big pile over on Mary Cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
no, we get rock now.
Okay, and that's a Pruitt. Assuming Rogers.
Yeah.
I'll work it up and then I'll try to get done while y'all are doing your thing and then let you look at it.
I said, that's a pretty big ticket.
I got a mile though, like.
8.5 miles,
Man,
and another course.
I just broke it
I brought you up.
to you.
Is it 8 or is it 9?
I got a mile over too, so.
A mile?
You did?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got a mile in there. Do I got one mile in
That'd
there?
be nearly 10 miles.
1 mile precinct 4.
Mine is a big ticket.
Okay. All in favor?
Who seconded, wait a minute.
I made the motion, Stacy seconded. Rogers.
That's 9.3 precinct 2, 3.25 and precinct 3. And 1 mile precinct 4.
Yeah, the only one I'm gonna need oil on is Murray Cemetery. The other one, you know what I'm saying, for the dirt,
Okay.
for stabilizing.
How much rain did you get?
It's a little half inch.
That's first, maybe first time I ever beat you. Scoreboard 6 tenths. Did you say 1?
I said it's over half inch.
Half inch?
He says 7 inches,
17.
or 7 tenths, not inches.
Yeah,
Good water.
I got right beating up 6 tenths.
It was nice to see water standing.
You come fast and hard though.
It
Supposed
did.
to rain Wednesday.
It's 10:30, you get that.
I guess it came 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock.
I slept through it.
Me too,
I
man.
think we're-
Heard a thing.
and everything.
We need to go ahead and add on for next week's agenda. He's got his culvert deal, I need a culvert deal put on there for next week.
Yeah.
And I need one, and also I need a deal for Raz's trailer, for contract for Raz's trailer.
Okay.
6 month lease.
Timmy not here.
That's Raz's, yeah, Raz's
I'll
trailer.
make notes, no one's asking me. No.
Was it Brazos?
Raz's trailer, Raz's trailer.
The 6 month,
Raz's trailer.
yeah, 6 month lease on it.
I got it here.
Hey, you owe us 2 more payments or more? 2 a year?
Two. Yeah, so next, well, after April 1st, I'll be, and I already had the money in Road and Bridge to do it, so I'll be doing it after April 1st,
And now that when you have to pull it back out.
July 1st.
I mean, what are we gonna do on policy, if somebody goes in and doesn't come get that?
I don't know.
Okay, we are in the area. Anything with regard to burn restrictions you want to discuss?
Getting green.
No need to
Spring
drink.
is sprung is springing.
It's sprung, I agree. Gonna be time to mow again.
Already in.
I did, I've already made twice.
Have you really?
My wife is so mad at me right now, I went through the yard with my broadcaster when I was putting that wheat seed.
Okay, I don't know, well, we discussed, consider, actually, we can't consider, we can just discuss, I mean, we can consider the modification we might want to make, but we can't do anything until we have that. We need to have those perfected, and then my office, your office, somebody's office, so they can see if somebody would. Okay.
I'm gonna go work on yours, I
Good
had-
man down there in the permitting office, that might be a good place to go.
Okay, you're gonna get Ann and I to sign that? Matt, what you do?
I will.
No, you don't. Okay, I'll bring it back to you. Big dead bug in the floor.
So do y'all want to record this or not? Just say-
Okay, this workshop, I guess you'd say, 232 of the local government code is pertaining statute to subdivisions and now included in the subdivisions, rules and regulations of manufactured housing communities also in that same setting. So they're combined already in the statute with the subdivision rules and regulations, although it does say they are not subdivision rules and regulations. And it's a little different process. Some come through here and actually, I don't think we're very far off bases. I might have thought we were on, initially here the last few months, because I think our order is basically with some small revisions, probably, will probably work when we have manufactured housing communities in there with.
Well, let's talk about one thing before we get too deep. Let's talk about this Wilkes deal we all got emails on.
Yeah.
What did you find out as far as they concerned?
Well, those people really need to, if they think that their subdivision qualifies for an exception, they need to bring that plan here and file it probably with me, where I can present it, where we can have it here, and we're gonna, there's gonna need to be we're gonna have to be convinced that it does meet that exception. Now, they can't just say, okay, we're gonna do this and it does,
Right.
go on, do it, otherwise we won't know anything about any of it.
What are you gonna require in that plat?
Excuse me?
What are you gonna require in the plat? Because to me, a plat, one of the main reasons for a plat is to find out what services is gonna be provided for.
Well, no, it wouldn't be a plat, it'd be a survey.
For a survey, would it? Well,
What we do with the watershed, plat?
we're gonna have to, there's another thing in there that Stacy brought up that's very important in that deal is the creek that runs through there.
Well, in visiting with Bob quite often on this, without saying you must, it does say that the Commissioners Court can define and classify the division of properties like this. It does say in there, down in it, even in this, even in the old statute, though it doesn't say specifically that you must have a certificate or the Commissioners Court has to find, but it does say any subdivision of properties that are required, or that says we're gonna have to make a finding on the definition of the classified land, and be proven they've got to make application for the exemption, and they've got to prove that they qualify in there. Otherwise, there's not any way that you can find that, and this makes that in the statute there, that the Commissioner's Court,
Sign off.
I'm gonna get that now. If one of you has it right there.
Well, and that's something I've been reading on that deal. This has been challenged since 1994. One of the ones they've got here was in Travis County and a bank, an Elgin Bank. And they didn't want to plat it because it was more than 10.1 acres and so on and so forth. They took it to the 250th District Court and Travis County won. It said, you will plat it, you will explain all this stuff. And then they found another judge later on down the line, took it back to court again, and they won in favor of the bank. So they took away the platting. But what happened then is when they took away the platting, they opened the door wide open for these developers to come in to buy a piece of land, and wherever they want to buy it, and not ever go and figure out where they're going to get electricity, a floodplain, a 100-year flood survey, the sewer system, and all this other stuff that they didn't do. Water. And that opened the door there for these houses to come in there and sell a bill of goods to somebody that wouldn't worth anything after they started the development.
Yeah.
Then they came back again through legislation and introduced bills that help protect that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been quite a bit rewritten, but I think that our local order here probably will do pretty good things with a few modifications now. Where I said survey the proposed division of the property claiming to be accepted from the platting requirements must be filed and reviewed with the presiding officer of the Commissioners, must be filed with the presiding officer of the Commissioners Court in accordance with section 5, 1F and 10G of this order, and receive certification of exception. And I say include that as a number, as F item F in the terminology definition. That would be section 3. Yeah, section 3, definitions. Gives you all the different definitions, and it may be, needs to be included somewhere else or in some other section, but that seems to fit the best place for that. And then just keep on, it's got 60 different definitions there. The number 57 has subdivision or re-subdivision of land, also in addition, is used in this court order shall be held and construed to include any division of an existing tract of land in 2 or more parts to lay out a subdivision or tract of land, including an addition, that's A, B, lots, or C, alley, streets, parks, other parts of tracts of land intended to be dedicated to public use or to the use of purchasers, owners of lots, fronting or adjacent in the streets, alleys, squares, parks, or other parks. Now, in our order here, this has been added this week. Not letter dedicated, but I've added it as D. I've put a D there. It said the foregoing term shall include a division regardless of whether it is made by means and bounds or description in a deed or conveyance or a contract for a deed by using a contract of sale or other executive contract to convey, or by using any other method. This shall include, in E, then, the foregoing term shall not be construed to include a division of existing tract of land which meets one or more of the, this says exemptions, and I'll make a correction there to call it an exception, which is what the code calls them, an exception to the requirement. Those are all in the definitions of terms, so I thought this would be a good F for that. A survey of the proposed division of property claiming to be accepted must be accepted from the planning requirements, must be filed with the presiding officer of the Commissioners Court in accordance with the section 5(1)(f) and 10(g) of this order, and to receive certification of exemption. In our fee schedule, we probably want to add some kind of fee for that, but similar to the South Ranch Division, that was a survey, is what it was a division survey. And I think that's what would need to be presented to the court, was a certified land surveyor, public engineer, to showing all of the details, and that's what would show proof to me that, well, maybe this does make an exception. Somebody got to make that finding. I mean, a developer can't just go in there and say, we'll do this way, and then we won't have to file any subdivision. So they just go and do it. There's one of them already done that way. It would make the exception provisions on 701 out there.
But whatever we have for the exception, then we have to have in our plan, in our rules.
In a subdivision, yeah. But if somebody is going, in the exceptions, what I'm making primary reference to right now, because that's how people get around the rules.
I mean, in our old one, it talks about the 100-year flood plan
Yeah,
and water shedding.
There's 6 or 8 specific exceptions to the rules that I don't think we can do anything about. I mean, we can't weaken them and strengthen them either one.
Doesn't say there.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I think we ought to take this Wise County and change the names and stuff in there, go through it, and use it as our main deal. And the reason I say that is because I went to a meeting there Wednesday, and I met with these guys, met with engineers, met with some commissioners, talked with them. They do an average of 5 or 6 subdivisions every quarter. They deal with. And as far as I'm concerned, they dealt with every scenario you could ever dream up.
Well, the intent of the subdivision rule is not to prevent subdivisions from happening, but making them orderly subdivisions where they would be presentable to the public, and we wouldn't have these dark canyons and mountaintop stays,
Exactly.
things like that. That's the intent of it. That was the intent of it before.
And you know, that's the reason, he said every one of these rules we have, it's got a person, a developer's name right beside it, because we have to have this rule, because of what he did.
Yeah.
And, but they meet every 6 months, you go back over pros, cons, problems they've come up with, so if they have to revise or change anything in the subdivision rule, they do every 6 months. And not once or twice a year, but every 6 months. Well, but here's the thing, if you don't keep up with the times, and we can say, well, what do we got around here, we might need a 100-year floodplain problem, survey done. There's several places around here that they can be building with hills around it, you know. It's not just for us as much as for the people that buy the property, what we're doing this for.
And I don't think they're trying to stop progress either.
We're not trying to stop progress, we're just trying to stay up with the times and make sure that everything's done right, you know. Those people, a lot of times, there's gonna be a few people that come here, that live here, that's gonna do the subdivision, but there's gonna be people coming from out of town that comes in here and does that. They're gonna leave and go back home, and we're gonna deal with it, so. That's what I want it to be. Because most of the people, it is here, he's gonna do it right. Because they gotta live here too.
Everything's behind it.
One thing that's, in these planning procedures that we have, it speaks about 2 blue line copies for reproduction of the preliminary plat. We might need 2 copies, but those blue line copies are out of date and not rarely used anymore.
Are we going to take the plat that Lane gave us and write in there the names to the roads and initially, or are we gonna have to take it back over and have him replat it?
Oh, I think we just, I think they've already done that, and
I can't touch those plats, they're filed. It's like me going in there to a deed and changing it, I can't
Yeah.
change it. I can put the commissioner court minutes, a certified copy with them, with that plat, but that's all I can do. I can't touch it,
Well, I
file
think
for
that-
record.
I think that would suffice for this, is just the court order,
Really change
as
the
a name
names to it?
change.
Just put a
I
certified
think
copy.
911's already done that,
Okay.
quite frankly.
So we just put the order in there, we'll put plat and that would
So what I
show.
can do is send a certified copy of the commissioner minutes over to the appraisal office.
Yes, and say, make note of that.
So they'll know that it's been changed. Go with their plat.
Pretty
fixing to get for you.
He's gonna get a copy of that. I'm gonna get a copy of more copies.
Subdivision rules start at chapter 332 of the local government code, subchapter A, division, subdivision plating requirements in general. Over on 32.007, they've added manufactured home rental communities. Described there, so it's included in, originally in this, it was a separate order.
Grandson's adorable. Did you hear me? I said your grandson's adorable. No fuss,
Last time that statute. I mean, it was June 17, 2011.
Which one do you want to take?
Green.
That's teal. It's in green.
Which one do you want? That's that what I can't do, I haven't been out. You got one second?
Yes, sir, you had a minute.
He's old, you gotta remind him.
That wasn't very long ago. Well, I can tell you one thing, if ever one of them guys buys a section of that up there and dams up that creek, you'll have a bigger problem than you ever thought.
Yep.
Cause it'll back all the way up on both sides of that road. The what? Up there,
Village Chapel?
or Meadow Chapel, where they're dividing that up.
Yep.
I've seen that creek in places, it's 12 foot deep, they running just level full and going out.
Well, you got all those, you got those hills behind it there, that all that water.
All that water comes off of it, it's
Right
fast.
there.
232.002 is approval by county required. Commissioners Court, the county in which the land is located must approve by an order entered into the minutes of the court a plat required by section 232.001. Commissioners Court may refuse to approve the plat if it does not meet the requirement prescribed by or under this chapter or any other bond required under this chapter, if that's not filed with the county. The Commissioners Court may not approve a plat unless the plat and other documents have been prepared as required by 232.035. 0035 has been pulled up here, the legal order. Yeah.
Motor scooter. And it
Two
crosses.
thirty-two, 0035 and 0036, deal acts and the 74th
And when it comes
legislature,
across that, under that highway, that bridge, you've seen how big that
effective
is.
June 16th,
Yeah,
1999.
Yeah, no, yeah. And by the time you get down here, and it turns, it comes all the way back through here, comes up through there. See, and if you're reading on our subdivision rules, right here, in section 7, yeah. No, see right here. That's where that's gonna fall under.
Says the plat application, procedures under this chapter, subchapter, apply to a county regardless of whether the county has entered into an agreement, interlocal agreement including an interlocal agreement between a municipality and a county. Even if it's in their ETJ, they're gonna have to file that county. Another thing that's changed in here is the timely approval, disapproval.
You got 60 days to, afterwards, right?
30th thing. Notwithstanding subsection D, if groundwater availability certification is required, now that's 30 days. That's groundwater availability. The Commissioner's Court or the court's designee shall make a determination under subsection F1 of whether a 30-day period will be extended not later than the 20th day after the date a complete plat application is received by the Commissioner's Court or the court's designee. Commissioner's Court or the court's designee may not require an applicant to waive the time limits or approval procedures contained in this subchapter. If the Commissioner's Court or the court's designee fails to approve with conditions or disapprove a plat application as required by this subchapter, the Commissioner's Court shall refund the greater of the unexpended portion of any application fee or deposit, or 50% of the application fare deposit that has been paid. If you conditionally approve one side, Commissioner's Court or designee that receives a response under subsection 232.027, which is approval procedure, application response to conditional approval or disapproval. Shall determine whether to approve or disapprove the applicant's previously conditional approval or disapproval plat application not later than the 15th day after the date the response was submitted under 232.027. Except as provided by subsection F, the Commissioner's Court or the court's designee shall approve with conditions or disapprove a plat application not later than the 30th day after the date the complete application is received by the Commissioner's Court or the court's designee. An application is approved by the Commissioner's Court or the court's designee unless the application is disapproved within that period and in accordance with section 32.026. The Commissioner's Court designee that conditionally approves or disapproves of a plat application under this subchapter shall provide the applicant a written statement of the conditions for the conditional approval or the reasons for disapproval that clearly articulates each specific condition for the conditional approval or reason for disapproval.
See, in here it tells us that this here, the Commissioners Court may grant an extension or extensions for preliminary plats for periods not to exceed 12 months each if the delay is due to requirements of approval of other governmental agencies or legal proceedings related to proposed subdivision and final conditions, and gives the conditions of what it is. And after that 12 months is over, then it's not, it's no good anymore.
Excuse me?
They got it in here where they got 30 days after they receive it to give it, either approval or find cause why they can't approve it. But they can extend that to 12 months, and it's flat.
The current subdivision rules that we have now, what county did y'all copy to get those in '07? What county did y'all copy in '07 to get what rules we got now?
Can't remember which one it was, but they're based off of one of some of the counties. It might have been, Cook County. It might have been Cook County, so.
I know I talked to Commissioner in Parker County and Ms. Wilkes. They've done the same thing in Parker County. They dealt with them in Parker.
How was the billing? Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what he just said.
I think this order that we've got kind of patterned out. I believe it's Cook County that it was patterned after.
I don't mind going in and copying them from different counties. But I still think I have questions about the 100-year floodplain on how it's gonna tie in with these lots, this subdivision here, having that creek back there.
Having what?
The creek.
Having the creek on the backside of these lots, how it ties in with the 100-year floodplain. Because you got some exceptions on accepting it to be in a subdivision, but it's gonna have to pass muster, something to do with the 100-year floodplain.
I don't think that's in the code here somewhere.
It is in the code, so, yeah, it shows it in the code. Because they're on Medlin Chapel at Coleman Road, there's that big, I mean, we got a big bridge there, and a creek that runs right through that, and it's running right back onto that property.
Is that the one going north right there on? I can't remember, good bridge
Yeah,
right there.
that's it.
Down there.
That's exactly where it's at, right there, and that's
The
cool.
bridge ain't very wide.
That bridge is there, but a lot of
Yeah.
water comes through.
Oh, a lot of water comes to that, don't it, Jason?
Didn't that thing get washed out sometime?
See, that's a lot of why my road floods, we get a lot of water. My road floods real bad because on down the creek, and some landowner he
Plugged it up,
he plugged it all up.
yep. Comes
So
back.
it just, when it rains a whole lot, there's nowhere for it to go, it backs up.
Yeah,
That's what you're looking at gonna happen here.
and that's what they're gonna do, because they're gonna make their tanks or whatever.
You can build a lake there when that thing's
Yeah.
running.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, don't yell at me right now.
It's full of oversized and everything, right before it gets to the state
That little
right away.
That little narrow bridge.
It's off of 16, but it comes, that creek, we got 3 different creeks that feed into that one.
Yeah.
It goes through there and it feeds into the lake.
All that water back off them hills, all that past my office and all that come right down that creek there.
So how deep do you think those lots are from the pavement to the south end? 800 foot? A bit more.
It'll be more than that.
It shows on it, don't it? Right, yeah.
How much scale?
I wouldn't know. It don't show on it from what we got, that's, okay.
I didn't know how close.
Because that is gonna be a problem.
I didn't know if it was in the current floodplain or not.
I mean, if I had a good creek like that, I'd probably build a tank on it.
Well, it's not gonna be in our river basin floodplain more than likely. But when people go to developing that and go to trying to make that drainage smoother, and look better, or build a tank on it, it's gonna cause a problem.
You know, that's the one reason, because If one person like they bought it off of, had it and owns all the land, that's a different story.
Right.
But when you have people that's bulking up and they're gonna be affecting them next to you on both sides, and maybe even behind you, then that's gonna be a problem.
I mean, that's a problem up on Spivey Hill, they did that wrong, and those people up there dropped out their backyards flooding, but ain't nothing I can do about it.
See, they dammed that creek up, I guess it'd be in the eighties, back on the back of Johnny's, when he was alive, to do some work back there. They was actually just crossing it, but when that dam washed out that creek, it took everything out of that creek for a mile down through there, before it got dispersed. The only reason I know is I fixed the fence for 2 weeks afterwards.
So what are you thinking about the Wise County thing, Stacy?
I think we need a blueprint of some sort.
Can you put a clause in there where they can't manually disturb the existing waterways?
We've got it in ours on section,
Yeah, I seen it in there.
and then down to, on number 7 in the water flood.
I'm sure this has got it.
It's got it in here too, because there's more.
Stormwater drainage,
Down there than out here.
it's got it in it.
Their
but
prices are a little higher, but are you gonna keep it like
There need
that?
to be something there to keep them from even trying it.
Stormwater discharge permit,
Right.
and it's a SW3P there.
Like right here in section 5, it says, the engineer of the subdivision shall study the effects of stormwater runoff from the subdivision on properties downstream. But this, if you dam that up over by the bridge, you're gonna affect people on the other side that ain't in that subdivision.
Okay, what it says here in this one, it says, no construction without the written approval of White County Commissioners shall be allowed within a floodplain easement, and then only after dealing engineering plans and study shows that no flooding will result, that no obstruction to the natural flow of the water will result. Where construction is permitted, all finished floor elevation shall be a minimum of 2 foot above the 100-year flood elevation. So they want to maintain at least 2 foot above that distance.
Right.
That's for the contractors.
Where'd you read that out? What page?
This is on page 31.
What about if after an individual moves in on the property, buys property, they go in and do it?
We got into that at all, and jumped in there and built our house, we put it on stilts, argued. About building it up there, we finally gave them a variance, and they never spent a day on that house.
Really?
Ended up moving.
Does the court want to I guess, plagiarize somebody else's, county's?
Let's not call it plagiarize.
Probably fair.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Bob asked me on the telephone, said, you know, rewriting this, and I said, well, yeah, we intend to. And they said, well, you know, maybe y'all have counsel on that, so not necessarily looking for the job, but there might be some things in there you need us.
Right.
I just go, well, no, we wasn't planning on.
Just
I get
mark
that.
what you want changed. There's something in there about oil and I didn't know.
What?
I put the oil on here.
Got early.
Just mark it.
He suggested some answers that I gave to those Willis brothers, realty people. So I plagiarized him on some
Yeah, that was.
without sending them his address. I just sent a copy of his message that had his name attached to it.
Yeah. In precinct 1, let's go with 2. 2.
We just have to go in here and change a few things up here, but we're talking about county engineers. We just have to do each commissioner, unless we put in, we have to retain county, an engineer at some point and get some back, you know, some feedback. This here does, it says, breaks down everything, density test, measures, record. We had to get out of there and go put in a travel trailer park. And the rules on travel trailer park goes back to the same deal as subdivision, they had to, he's gonna put the rock road in there, and he said, no. We're gonna put in what we have in subdivision, which is 8 inches of rock compacted at a certain percent, and 2 inches of hot mix on top of that. They said, we're, public ain't going in there, he said, as soon as you put the first trailer in there, public's going in there. And he said, we're doing that not only for their benefit, but for the fire department, the ambulance service, the police department, everybody that's going there to take care of the people that need in there. We need to be able to get to them, not have to carry a stretcher 300 yards or whatever, you know.
Jimmy's on there.
No,
Oh, yeah, that is it, that precinct 4. Okay.
precinct 3. And 4. Yep. So that should be precinct 2.
Yeah.
Precinct 3.
Right, I fixed it.
Okay. That's everything, right? That's right for the Friday at 9 and April 12. Okay. Well, I'm gonna double court.
And I was providing the rock.
I worked that much on my rock.
I'm not gonna mess with what a previous commissioner did. Give them the oil and we'll let them do all that.
It's 5. Bottom.
Do a check with Richard Bowman, waiting for results to come back on that.
On that. That's really gonna find an answer. That's really gonna find an answer to the question.
Hopefully.
Yep.
Shannon texted me last night. She said they'd have several blood transfusions,
That's not a good sign.
because they did not know where it's going, and that's why they're doing blood barrel.
Well, it's not, it's the same thing he does. It's not good.
He said he's feeling better, but,
He does when he has the blood.
yeah, when he's got blood.
He does feel better with blood.
The
problem is platelets and stuff, on it. Yeah. And you lose it that fast, it's not a good deal.
No, it's not good.
Who are y'all talking about?
Richard. Hot.
Oh. I know they said be careful out of it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know something.
She was joking around with us that I might have to go over and take his horses up. to the river road and leave them back.
And one's the,
Autoimmune. Autoimmune. It's autoimmune. Autoimmune.
The drainage study shall be prepared and sealed.
That's something we'll talk about.
Professional engineer in the state of Texas.
Work.
Some of them like are down there, where they got the water problem, they even got little tanks that they had to push off in before they go back out, and they use those inlets or outlets in there,
Yeah,
so that the water will only go by was so,
yeah, like they did at Pizza Hut. out
yeah,
there.
same deal, same deal.
so I was telling you that the prices are higher on this, would you keep that, the one that are on this?
Prior to.
I mean, you're looking at 2006 to 2019, these are 2019.
Drainage
So,
study
I'm
shall
sure,
be-
just like anything else, the price goes up.
That's right. They said they didn't have, they don't have any problem with any of these prices.
I wouldn't think so either.
Cul-de-sac, highbrow. It gives the right-of-ways, right-of-ways.
Did we have this in ours, the supporting documentation for electric, natural gas, telephone, school district? Yeah, that's pretty good. Soil, water conservation.
Yep.
Approval of the county 911 service administrator. Did you see that?
Yep.
So she's gotta go out and look at it now.
Yep.
And we're gonna change. I'm sure they got this in like a Word document that we just go through there and start changing it. Do you think, Jimmy?
Very possible.
I hope so. I'm sure, I mean, they had to type it up. I'm sure they didn't delete it once they did it.
Yep. See, the other thing that they, one of the topics they had with down there, Wednesday is mailboxes, they're having trouble with mailboxes. And it specifically states it's gotta be so far off the road, it can't be in your
Right away.
right away. And it can't be, they rather you do a cluster or something, close to the entrance of each one. Because, and they have the right, they said, if they put it right up there, you're right away, you can just lock it down and go on.
Well, we do usually,
Yeah.
on accident, we do.
But, it's just one of those things that's gotta be taken care of.
How many mailboxes have you put up in your commissionership? A few?
Yeah, not too many. Most of my guys, most of my places they don't have that many mailboxes out there. So they got the box there at the post office.
Yeah.
There's a few.
Toby seems to take out a lot when he's mowing. 240.
I think it's like 2.83, 2 point.
Loads. Do like 2.8 miles. Yeah, 2.8 miles. Stick to 340.
No, it's 2 something.
Not 340? Oh, no, that was my final. Never mind, I know what I was doing. Yeah, it's 2 something.
Last time was 204.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's
I
pretty
think it's
good.
like, what,
Yeah.
175 or,
You mean the first time?
well, no,
This time?
we're gonna put our match in there with their funds.
With
Right.
county money,
Yeah.
170 or something?
No, it's 2 something, I believe.
Is it really?
We're getting 500 and.
I thought it was 170.
What is it?
Let me see it.
It might be 175.
It was on flat.
With me.
The what?
Here's what it's been.
Had nothing to do with it. But I sure do now.
I think it's 166, 682.
166 with the county money?
Divided up, 166, I believe.
Marcia can tell you exactly.
Do I?
Marcia can tell you exactly.
Yeah.
And don't use non-coated draw. Don't use non-coated draw.
How long did you say that was? That you put in there?
I'm gonna say it's probably about 24 foot,
Yeah.
24 foot.
All right.
What are we gonna do, like, if we
I'll
get
send this
culverts
on your
put in and we don't, they didn't come get a permit and they just refused us?
What's that?
Well, if we get somebody that comes in, moves in, puts in their own culvert like that, you go tell them to get a permit, but their culvert's too small, or we're gonna have to go pull them out.
Well, you can.
I mean, we can, but what are we gonna do in that process, you know?
If you find one that's, well, I think if you find one that's not permitted, a new one that hasn't been permitted, you know, obviously there's bunch in county ditch lines now that have been there for years.
That have never been permitted, that's fine, I mean, but where we come back and get these that are being permitted, somebody comes in and throws one underside in the ditch line.
I think what we
If
need to
you
do
find a
is
new one,
me,
yeah,
you,
you
all
can
this at this home,
absolutely,
and then use the
you
highlighter.
go in there and tell them, you're gonna have to have a
Whatever.
permit for this.
And then have them
And
send
it's
us
not
the
large
copy of
enough.
it, and then,
You need to go file.
I mean, I can do it, or you can have the girls do it, and just put young and everything.
Well, they may
Put
do
this
it.
back to Commissioner's
They
Court,
put it in the scanner.
me or somebody,
Huh?
They already put it in the scanner and scan it to the printer.
so you need approval for this, and I'm not gonna approve it.
Oh, then I change it.
I don't think you can.
I'm
On
gonna
a
put
scan
this
one.
size on there.
Now, if they,
But if they refuse to
This is
comply,
12-inch
a Word document or something like
I'm
that,
required
then
to
you
have
can do it, but I don't
anything.
think on the scan one you can.
or 24 or something like
You
that.
might have to just send a
I've
whole
seen
file
some
to them.
people go in and put a piece of 4.5 under it,
I'll check with
and they're still there,
Yeah.
but now that we're doing
them.
permits,
They got a copy.
if somebody runs in and does
I'm
that,
sure they
if
do.
we remove
Because
it,
they have to
we're
go back
gonna
and
make
make
them.
changes, and they're not gonna rewrite the whole dang thing. I
If they don't
wouldn't.
move within specific, I think we've got,
Pretty good stuff in there.
in that policy, if you read that policy, it just, it, I believe it addresses that.
You know,
On the
Culver
culvert,
County
we
over
did,
here.
y'all did that before I got in here.
So things that we don't
Yeah,
have to have,
it's,
yeah.
The remedy
Exactly, that's
is
what I'm
that
saying.
you give them, warn them and give them a time period to correct it. If they don't, then we correct it at their expense.
Okay. So we can go in and move it after that and send them a bill for it if we need to.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, basically. So you pay this bill. You probably ask.
Like on the very bottom of the page, it says Wise County, Texas.
Mhm.
Do you see that? June of 2019.
Yeah,
They changed that.
Send them over.
Yeah.
If they wouldn't do it themselves, or you can do it yourself. But, yeah, that's county right away, and then.
I don't think it says we don't ever pay, it does, it's just a footnote.
That authority
Right.
We need a reminder to
to
do that.
place one in there, and if it doesn't meet spec,
Now, if I got somebody that's got a culvert that's undersized, but, or not up to code, but they've had it there for years, and they decide they wanna put a new culvert in, do I need to come back and do
yeah,
a
if they're going to
permit
put
on
new
that?
in, they won't put a new one in, no.
Even though it's already had a culvert there?
I think you regard that as a, you can put them in at their request,
Right.
you can request them to put a new one in.
Did you see there too, they have their applications?
The remedy for those works is
You also give
through this permitting process.
Breakdown
Yeah.
for you to, the developer.
Well, I know that's what we're doing,
Yeah,
the permit
yeah, I
process,
like
because we
that.
got too many that just went in and threw
I
it.
did like
If
it.
one's
Because it makes it easier on them too.
Right.
I mean, we might as well all be on the same page.
Causing a road problem,
Yeah.
and it doesn't, it's not the county's thing, I mean, most of the ones that were in there, have been in there for years, you know, you just assume the responsibility of them, and when they have to be replaced, you replace them, or you, if they're not causing you any damage, you don't do anything with it.
Till they decide they need them replaced.
You know, they're either gonna work sufficiently to be okay with them if they're not causing you any damage, or county roads. If they're not doing damage to the road, you go back to water up, or run them across the road, and stuff down ditch lines.
Subdivision out there,
Those kind of things, they got it smashed down,
you're using well water to supply them with.
and then they're gonna have to.
They've been set up here for a subdivision of pure
Like a little water.
houses. You gotta have a minimum of 25 gallons of
That's
storage.
the thing.
And when I say you, you're doing that in an advisory capacity, and say, if you don't, of course, I'm gonna put it on, of course, we're gonna take action on it.
Yeah.
See, I had none of that.
And I'm wondering like out on Medlin Chapel, they'll have that anyway, because,
How far that,
I mean,
gonna
you
go
got-
back,
there's a
like
bunch of
some of these
houses.
old
You know, it's like
culverts
the city
that
owns
are
Their own,
in the ditches.
their own Fort Bellow.
They've been
They
there
are.
before I was born.
but I don't know what they got running
That's
through
probably all
there.
it does.
See, the other thing we gotta figure out
Don't fall on me.
is on that Fort Bellow water, how many of them,
This culvert has been in here for 3 years,
You can, yeah.
the ends are mashed
I need to get
down,
there and find out.
And we
they
really
don't want any water,
What the notification number
they're
is.
causing us a
They
problem.
went from one family well in there to,
The remedy is for them to come back through and do this permit process.
Right.
Exactly.
you know, and they're gonna be watering the grass or.
And there's a guy that just,
Stock or.
there's a guy that built a house out there.
Cost.
But I didn't know if like a culvert has
Kim
been there
Patterson.
for a long time, if they
He
wanted to
built a
replace
nice
it.
little house out
And
there.
never mind
He's
the
gonna-
culvert if we had to
I
permit
don't know what
that.
he's doing.
If they,
You know who
doing
he is?
everything up to what I tell them
It
to,
is a light bulb.
then they still need to do a permit.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, man, all the time.
If they decide to replace one,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
drive up
He's
where
got a
there's
cool
one
place
been
out there.
for 20
He
years,
was-
and
we were
then it's brand new,
That metal home? No, it's out there.
say,
It's pretty inside. I've been out there
you
and
do
it's pretty freaking sharp.
So they're not
I wish I had
grandfathered.
been.
The older culverts, then they're not grandfathered in
Huh?
place. as far as they go.
Oh, I
You
wouldn't
know,
know
permit, or come to the court, get a permit, or down to our permitting office, get a permit.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm telling them they need to go through that process, see,
Same specs as precinct.
you know, I kinda think
Okay.
we probably ought to have some kind of fee for that, but we don't, it's just the
That was good.
process.
Did you tell her that was good?
If they'd have done it first, if they'd come to the
Huh?
first, where there wasn't a culvert at any time, then we agreed to install it. If they furnished the culvert, we installed it
Yeah, Kim's pretty good.
Yeah.
the first time.
Well, what's their brush?
Any reason it was
Brush
on
back
that.
on his land
Okay.
before we started doing all that.
Unless it
Brushing that roadway.
goes causing some kind of problem.
He's like, just put it back here, we'll burn it.
I kind of got a little, I don't know, I got a little issue there with, actually doing that,
That's when I looked in his house.
installing it for them.
Lord.
Because once it gets in our ditch line, it's gonna kind of be considered county property. And it's on county property,
Yeah.
up to usually the fence line, you know, property line.
Well, I got one guy's farm
Sometimes
equipment,
that
he's
is
got
the
bigger
ditch
at the
line.
time. It don't fit over the culvert he's got, but he's wanting the culvert works fine, it ain't damaged, but it's 30 years old, he wants to put a longer one in its place. I don't want him coming in and digging in the ditch and messing the ditch up either, so I'd rather put it in, why, let him just let me remove it and put it in. But does he need the permit for that, just replacing that culvert with a longer one?
Yeah.
So that's all I was trying to say. Is there anything in here that says that any subdivision of any kind needs to be reviewed by the Commissioner's Court to see if it's exempt in general?
I think that is,
I haven't seen anything in this Wise County, is that what everybody's got's Wise County?
yes,
I haven't seen anything in there with regard to that in these local regulations.
Cul-de-sac. I always call it a cul-de-sac. Called cul-de-sac.
232.015 is exceptions to plat requirement. So to determine whether divisions of land are required to be platted, a county may define and classify the divisions. How are we gonna define and classify the divisions if we don't know anything about them?
Where'd you read that, John?
Huh?
Where'd you read that at?
232.0015,
Oh, in the government code? Yeah.
local government code. The county need not require platting for every division of land otherwise within the scope of this chapter. And then it goes to giving you the exceptions. Number B is, except as provided by 232.013, which is, those in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city that you've got an agreement with. C is the first exception, the real exception. It says the county may not require the owner of a tract of land located outside the limits of municipality who divides the tract into two or more parts to have a platted subdivision if the owner does not lay out a part of the tract prescribed by section 232.001A3, thus the streets and alleys and things in public places. And the land is to be used primarily for agricultural use as defined by section 1D, article 8, Texas Constitution, or for farm and ranch wildlife management or timber production use within the meaning of section 1D1, article 8, Texas Constitution. That puts a definition on it, is really as wildlife management, open space land, or agricultural uses. And those are classifications that are in the tax code. So, I don't know, I mean, I'm not very crazy about that definition there.
Well, as soon as you change hands of property, it falls out of farming then. It doesn't matter if you inherit it, if you sell it, if you give it away, the new owner has to put it back under farming then.
See, that was the other thing that, one of the requirements in that deal that they discussed about in their third Wednesday was, when we get that plat, we need to have that receipt from where they paid the taxes on it. And not only paid the taxes, but paid the 3-year back tax, the REIT
Yeah.
on that. Because they went from farm use to commercial use, the instant they described it as being a subdivision.
Yeah, those things have to be renewed every once in a while too.
Yep.
But yeah, like you say, every time it passes hands, you gotta go back and make that designation again.
So the instant that they bought it from Clark, if they have got it under farm use, it's not gonna fall under wildlife management, timber management, agriculture use immediately. So it already has to be platted at that point to be divided. It doesn't matter how they go plat it, they're not under farm use.
Well, there's an exception for what you're talking about there.
Do what?
There's an exception for what you're talking about there,
Okay.
and that's number 3, or my number 3, it's F actually in the local government code. It says the county may not require the owner of the tract of land located outside the limits of municipality to divide the tract 2 or more parts to have a plat of the subdivision prepared if all of the lots of the subdivision are more than 10 acres in area, and the owner does not lay out a part of the tract described by section 232.001A3. That's just streets and alleys and things like that.
But the key word in that is may.
No.
It don't say shall, it says may.
Well, I think just like it's permissive language, and I brought that up. Actually, there's case law that, I guess, I believe it is case law, where I think the Supreme Court found that, or maybe it's in the government code, that's where it is, it's in the government code. And it states all those things about may and shall and for and have, but it said shall not, it said may not has the effective meaning depending on the context. So if it's in a context and referenced as being a permissive term, may is permissive, but may not has the same definition and context as shall not. So the government code has told you that unless it's otherwise specified specifically different, then may not means shall not. That's not what I thought until about 2 weeks ago.
Well, this tract of land in St. Martin, I'm sure they got 10 tracts, but is there some more behind it there? that's not being
No, it's
developed?
all owned by, that's a whole different property there. And when we quit leasing that, it got sold to Skidmore. So Skidmore owns all that back there,
Okay.
and then it
You sure
goes,
Skidmore does, or does Brian Peavy?
unless they sold it to him, Skidmore's did.
You're talking about out here on,
Brian Peavy's is on behind that.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
So everything will, well,
you talking about out here on 67?
Oh, no, Midland Chapel.
On Medlin Chapel behind where these lots have been bought. They was asking who owns it.
That place there that Skidmore's bought ran from that, back by that creek all the way to Ronnie, or that place where Ronnie Snow's is.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back through there.
Yeah.
And comes up behind like, all those houses on the highway right there. It goes in behind them at an angle.
You go across the street.
Go ahead.
Do what now?
Line that off Fiji?
No, I think PB owns on, Upper Tom, on like the corner of Upper Tom, 67 back. He owns
Right on
that.
the opposite side of the highway?
Yeah.
Yeah. Roger? Roger,
Yeah,
where we built that new house?
Yeah.
yeah, across the highway from it, they bought all that, all the way back to Carrie's house. There on,
On the west side?
yeah. It was all one place at one time. We leased all that.
Yeah, where the, let's see. Brian, he did live back there.
Yeah, he had the place to the south of this one. He bought it because Dad started buying it one time.
Okay.
I think Stanley Junior, I guess it was, or maybe his dad, developed, I think, Medlin Chapel out there.
Really?
I think that's who that was.
I didn't know that.
Okay, what you're talking about here is this is in a deal from TAC, who done the deal on that. And it says here, at least some county officials have a difficult time trying to understand and apply the exception, section 232.0015, reviewing directly above. The hardest problem seems to stem from the use of the same section of need not. Section A, 7 sentences of may not, and one other use the shall not. Some confusion has arisen determining the meaning of the second sentence, 232.1005. A county need not require platting for every division of land otherwise within the scope of the subchapter, especially in the wake of 1999 edition of the section 232.0015. Sometime elusive distinctions between may and shall have been subject to appellate court opinions and Attorney General's opinion. The ability of these opinions to shed light diminished however, when the word not is added to both may and shall. And then a need not is thrown into the mix for good measure. In fact, the need not in the whole above quoted sentence of 232.0015A predated 1999 statutory changes. It is not very clear what this sentence was intended to accomplish. On one extreme, it has been argued that the intent is that it is optional for the county to require or enforce platting for the subdivisions which fall under the explicit and direct statutory requirements to landowners in 232.0.001 in support of the view in the bill analysis of 1999, Senate Bill 710, which states that the revisions granted counties the authority to require platting for all new subdivisions unless exceptions apply. Yet the language of the statute itself seems not to leave the matter to counties, but rather to the issue at direct command to landowners to file those plats required by 232.001 with the county clerk. So it goes back to that need not, may not.
Well, that specific statute here, 232.015, it uses need not and may not.
Yeah.
In during the statute.
Yeah. So it's an oxymoron, more or less, it's counterintuitive both with each other.
And it's in the government code, it states, it's coded in there that where those terms appear, depending on the context of what it is, may not has ultimately the same meaning as shall not.
Well, according to this, in addition, the bill analysis of Senate Bill 17 states that for each may not section, that the act prohibits the county from requiring the plat described in that subsection. A 2000 Attorney General opinion shed lights on the matter. The question was posed to the Attorney General: does section 232.0 permit a county to accept specific divisions of land from a subdivision plat requirement? The answer, we, the Attorney General, include that it does. The option states that the addition of the listing section for the plat requirements in subsection A must authorize the county to define and classify divisions to accept from the platting requirements particular subdivisions because they are not expected under subsection B, okay, would otherwise be subjected to the platting requirements. We thank the Attorney General for adding clarity to the matter and recommend that those interested in review the opinion for themselves. So, what was Bob's take for us requiring them to do that?
Bob's advice to the people is not directly, but in advice, he said this, you should file that, you should file with the Commissioner's Court, or he said the presiding officer of the Commissioner's Court for an exception to the requirement for subdivision rules. And along with that application, you should have verification and proof that your request is legitimately true. So, I mean, like a professional engineer's survey, or land surveyor, certified land surveyor.
I'm not saying that just because you say it is, it is.
Yeah. So, otherwise, you know, me, I got 50 acres. I got 51 acres out there, and I'm going to divide that into 5 parts that's got 10.01 acres in it. And I'm just gonna lay it off right here and right here, and I'm gonna say it's got 10.5 acres in it, and I'm gonna sell this part. Survey, no survey. I'll make that determination myself. But if you go out there and survey it, well, three of those 5 are just 9.92 acres. Who's gonna know that? I mean, who makes that determination?
That just cancels out their exemption.
You know,
The subdivision.
it may not be required unless you take somebody to court and court finds, yeah, you have to file, you have to make that determination. And you can't do that yourself, you've got to make application to the governing body that controls, operates those rules and regulations to see if, in fact, you do meet the requirements for exception. It's just like this one down here. We have got talking about that, inquiring and seeing. I mean, one would think, no, it doesn't have any, it doesn't need us all over 10-acre blocks. There's not any need or requirement to make application and file that, but there was, just because of those 2 little short roads. They had cul-de-sacs at the end of them, turnarounds.
The two roads, all what that did was it gave entrance for the public to come in, whether you live there or not.
We won't know the Wilkes deal unless they file, request that exemption, or that exception. I don't want to say exemption, it's not an exemption, it's an exception to the rule.
Or variance.
I think,
Basically a variance.
Wise County, page 9, call it a variance.
Yeah.
think, what, page 9?
Well, yeah, there's,
But
well, these rules right here have got variance and exceptions in there.
I think Wise County needs to be updated on, it says the owner can come to Commissioner's Court, but we need to put in there with supporting documents, which means a survey or a go-ahead plat. But I think we could still use that.
Well,
I think it says it.
It says it, and
Yeah,
if
it
you
does.
go down there, it says,
It
the
does.
letter shall contain all specific facts and permits data upon which the variance is requested.
But we might get
Additional
more
variance request letters.
definition as a survey or a plat.
Drainage, it says drainage, frontage and drainage plan.
Yeah, it says it all.
Variance request shall not require a fee or variance.
So they're using variance instead of exception.
Yeah.
So it is in there. Did I spell it out on what supporting documents are entailed?
I know we have to do something because it's moving fast and we're moving slow right now.
Yes, we're gonna have to get it on.
Do our thing.
But I think in this variance deal, it reverts back to the subdivision rules and regulations that they're already under. And it specifies all those prior to. And in that case there, then you go back to where your subdivision rules and lays it out in here what they are. Well, the only thing you're gonna be doing is asking a variance on one of those rules in there. That has to be brought up to line. Or to include.
It's got it in there, but I, like you said, it won't set what they need to bring.
Bob also said it would protect the developer, or it would have the tendency to protect the developer and the purchaser.
That's right, it's twofold,
You know,
it's twofold.
if you back through here and have some kind of certificate. A certificate of the meeting requirements, minimum requirements for exception.
Here's your answer to
You
your
know, it's
question.
kind of,
On section 406, supporting documentation, 33.
another thing to think about in that regard too would be is just like this South Ranch deal, somebody, I think one or two of those 14, 15 acres or
Yeah.
16. That's just what somebody wanted to sell 10 acres of that. I'm gonna just stay on 5.1 acres
If they sell it to a family member, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
According to the deal, if it's to a family member, there's nothing we can do about it. If grandma or one of the mothers-in-laws or whatever comes out there and builds a little mother-in-law house, ain't nothing we can do about it. But if it's divided up and it's not a family member, then we have something to say about it.
Can we change it?
It'd be subject to subdivision rules.
Exactly.
Supposed to be anyway.
Yes.
Please don't let that happen. Can we change it?
You want your mother-in-law right beside you, man?
It's nothing.
You're
My mother-in-law been outside me for over 33 years.
That's your own fault. Oh, goodness.
We can take a short break.
I'm fixing to take a short break. Coffee is coming through. Take a short break.
Short break.
Yes, sir, internet's down.
Been using it.
No, pull up everything but that. You know Matthew Fry?
Is it a good guy or a bad guy?
I don't know, they left me a message, hello, this is Matthew Fry, I'm with WWE Civil Contracting, me and my boss James Wilson is a heavy highway contractor. It is moving to the area and the surrounding county, he is looking to do work with the Department of Transportation. He would like to meet with you at your earliest convenience, so please give us a call back, my number.
Who was they talking about where to go? JP was in here.
The what?
JP was in here and it's talking about somebody shipped off. Maybe had rumor in the head or
bet that whirlpool down there is taking 5 or 6 of them to control every time they turn it.
What are you talking about?
None of your business. That would make this a threesome here if I tell you. We gotta do something we can't do with Mr. Bass. Replied to an email that we all went to that meeting, done that. We may have to start posting it. So you want more than 2 show up. It's a public meeting, but still. It'd be like me, you want to get a point for a chemical license. He'll show up halfway through it. Does that make that a quorum? No, that's a public deal there, but that being where we're actually talking about stuff that affects us through the county, but others, we may have to post them the way they're talking.
Yeah, maybe stay home then.
That's what I was thinking too. I'll go ahead and stay home, you can go. You can explain it to them.
What are you talking about, going to what, not going, what are you talking about?
Like when we went to the Republican Party meeting the other night, there was 3 of us there. So, they were bringing it up through, they'd asked Jim Allison about it the other day.
As long as you're not talking county business, you're fine.
But we were. I mean,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking stuff that affects the county through these bills that are going through Austin. At that point,
We do that when we go to commissioner board meetings. I mean, when we go to commissioner, these conferences, we're all in the, all 4 of us are in there, 5 of us are in there. And they're talking about legislation.
yeah,
So why would it be against the rules?
I don't know, but he said we may have to start posting if we're gonna go, you know, we told him
I don't agree with that.
about that 2:30.
Because when we go to the legislative updates in Austin, all 5 of us are there. And they're talking about legislation, so,
West Texas,
yeah. Yeah, it's the
you
same.
don't have to change your phone or banquet or anything like that. You can make
Yeah, I know you don't have to do that.
Department phone right here.
That's a common, that's what they call common, just,
But that political deal, I don't know, but so you brought 4,000, you know, West Texas,
Yeah.
Oxford.
Because we're talking about legislation and everything else there. Well, it wouldn't be the only county, it'd be every county in 4 counties.
no, it was just brought up through the TAC discussions on what their emails were.
I don't worry about it. Been done for years.
Well, I mean, it states in our rules that if it's a common gathering, like, we can all be down at the square at the food truck deal.
United, getting groceries.
Yeah. Now, if you don't know how to getting bread, I'd be all against that. If they're running out on a snow day or something, you're gonna have to believe if I'm trying to get bread first.
Back when you counted before, 3 of them had stuff on. I was on, speaking of that, I was on to
I actually thinking about the Waco one, there's one in Waco,
I gotta get my hours, so.
yeah. That's why I thought about the
We got in
Waco.
the middle of road construction, if we can get it down there too.
Yeah,
See, I go to the legislature deal, but I didn't know if I,
that's in August, the one in Waco's in July, Stacy.
You got your hours at first
Yeah, you're done.
orientation, wherever they go.
for the year, but I still want to go to that legislation deal. I've got to West Texas with you, you wanna go?
That's in Augusta.
I'm good.
I got friends out there.
It's supposed to be a nice hotel, we're driving, or Jimmy went to,
Have you ever been to Wayne?
but they ended it.
Yeah.
Expo Center or something, and drive.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about us going down to Austin, no, they ain't, that's the only city in the state that decided that the mask mandates are mandatory to do.
Yeah, I looked at that one because it's central and north central or east central or something like that, Texas, that one in Waco, and I'm like, Waco's not